LA has every night 50,000 interesting things to do. World class, major artists at the Bowl or at Disney Hall or at the Opera or at
Everywhere.
the theater.
5 minutes away from you.
Yeah, and then there's world-class movie theaters, and there's a million, like just the other day at the Troubadour, Paul Simon and Paul McCartney apparently came by, and so, we are very spoiled by an overabundance, like a blinding overabundance of options of what you want to do if you want to go out that night. Never mind all the museums and all the, it just goes on, or just go to the beach, or like there's just so much competition for people's time that the flip side, even though this place is like a mecca where all these creative people from around the world come and try to create their work, the flip as a result is that if you're trying to put on a thing, it is hard to get people to come because it's just competitive. It's just, there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of like things fighting for people's attention. And so, you tend to really notice the people who will show up. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Explain why I'm congratulating you to our listeners who are curious about this cold open. Surviving?
You're supposed to plan these things like a year in advance. You're supposed to have your time to prepare and to create the pieces that you want to put on the exhibition. Well, I did all that in
Says who? Where does this year come from? Where is this date?
Because this is the norm. It's not a rule, but it's,
Well, I follow the Leonard Bernstein rule, which says to do great work, you need a plan and not enough time.
Yes. Not recommended, but it was very, very fun. And I loved the results. And
wait, back up and just explain. It was your first solo exhibition.
Yes. Here
in LA, and probably the most elaborate ever for you. I mean, in terms of the number of pieces, the scale. It was in a very nice gallery space.
I've been asking around, and these people in the Anaheim Gallery Center, they were the first to say, yes, we like your work, bring it. So I I guess I'm so happy they said yes, and I'm so happy they liked what we did. My pitch was, let's do diálogos and let's have an exhibition related to diálogos, related to music. Let's just create art inspired by music. We at the end decided to do Austin. Why don't you just explain? It's happening to me again. I tried to explain this in the exhibition, and I was like,
it's very
my brain.
cute.
I'm just practical. I'm not expressive. But you are.
Well,
so go for it.
The thing that's unique about the space is it has the traditional wall hanging, like cabinets or whatever you want to call them, like display cases for art, but then it also had display cases that were in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the room, where it was sort of like double-sided, where you could mount works on either side of a freestanding case. And that struck me as uncommon.
If you guys want to see pictures, I already posted some pictures on my Instagram so you can understand. It's a two-sided wall, basically. It's standing in the middle of the room.
Yeah, exactly. But with nice lighting installed and behind glass, locked glass and stuff. So you could really, put something there nice and meaningful. And so we discussed after we went down there to kind of look at the space. And the pitch became, what about you making a series of paintings inspired by pieces of music that I could choose for you that I would be pretty sure you'd never heard before, so that on one wall of this case, you could place the painting that was you reacting to the piece knowing nothing. So you listen and just purely emotionally and kind of instinctively paint what it inspires.
You were you chose 5 tracks, and I made 10 pieces, and the tracks were labeled like just track 1, 2, 3, 4, and I listened to them, and then I painted I think I painted the first two without knowing anything, and then you explained, and I painted the other bunch.
Right. Yeah, we kind of did it in
Kinda
phases.
Like, yeah, we did.
Yeah, exactly. So that you end up where physically you have to walk around this case. To me, it was kind of like displaying a coin.
It's like
where you can't see both sides. You have to physically change where you're standing to get a different angle, and that was the pitch. It's you listening to the same piece twice, but you've got a different angle. The first time you know nothing. The second time I sit down with you and say, okay, this one is by Leonard Bernstein. He wrote this in the 1950s, inspired by this specific work from Plato, the Plato Symposium, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I could give you kind of, not knowing what would inspire you about that information, but just, saying, here's the reason why I chose the piece. Here's why I love it. Because I did, of course, semi-selfishly, I chose pieces that I really loved, like that I can speak about passionately.
It's so funny because I honestly thought that you were going to choose pieces that were more specific. Like it was very abstract at the end. I thought you were gonna come up with a story, like, oh, this piece means that the story of these two characters that went to a journey and they had to find love or something like that. And I was just picturing something more specific, more like tangible. But then the explanation is like, oh, this guy made this piece on his 20s, and it was the culmination of there's no story there. And I was a little frustrated at some point. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? I don't.
Yeah, it's funny how I realized after those conversations that probably part of why you assumed that was because so often we're talking about Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, where the music is something that was scoring a scene. So at minimum, I can explain what was going on in the movie or in the game or whatever that music accompanied. But for these, they call it absolute music that is just exists to be music. It's not trying to say, okay, this is the part where they jump on the horse, and so the music goes faster here and blah, blah, blah. Like in a film score.
It's not the planets. It's not,
Yeah, exactly. The planets is an example. The alternative to absolute music is what they call program music. The planets is technically not program music because program music is a term that usually means something very literal, like this is the part where the character is walking up the stairs and you hear the music going bum, 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 or whatever. Like that's typically what people say program music. They mean the music is trying to be literally descriptive. Like, okay, another good example, the classic one everyone uses is the French composer Hector Berlioz wrote this piece in the early mid-1800s called the Symphonie Fantastique, which is describing something that is happening to this guy. And there's a part where his head is cut off and falls out of the guillotine into a basket. And the orchestra does this kind of like, ba-dum, ba-dum. And they're like, that's supposed to be the moment where Berlioz is saying that's where the head literally has fallen. I think music that is quite literally that, or music that is that literal is a little silly. And when it's great, you don't have to even know that stuff, and it's still great.
Anyway, that was a separate comment, but yeah, I was like, what is this? Is this like was this composer thinking about space, or was he thinking about, family, or I don't know. But yeah, you gave me all these later explanations that were like, this might sound a little harsh, but they didn't fulfill my expectation. And I felt a little overwhelmed because I didn't know what to paint after the information. But no, I at the end managed. You were very helpful, and you were like, there's no rule. You do what your heart tells you, and just get inspired. Listen to it again. And so I figured I could solve my problems after, and I appreciate it.
Well, and the specific one that you were alluding to a minute ago, one of the pieces, well, I'll list the 5 pieces. It was Mendelssohn Overture from the Midsummer Night Dream, the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra, second movement, the so-called Game of Pairs, the Ravel String Quartet, the Scherzo movement, first movement of the Leonard Bernstein Serenade for violin, and an orchestra, his violin concerto, and then the fifth one was the second movement, so-called Summer Morning, from the Four Sea Interludes of Benjamin Britten from his opera Peter Grimes. And the one that you're referring to about like, wait, this is was the Ravel, where it's literally just called String Quartet in F, and it's a piece very famously that he wrote and submitted it to this big composition prize that was called the Prix de Rome, the Rome Prize, and he didn't win. And it made a bunch of people be like, what's wrong with you? He's obviously one of the most talented composers on the planet. And it's one of those, history has validated that, because Ravel is definitely revered.
Oh, I felt that last weekend.
Come on now. Ravel is regarded as one of the great composers of all time.
I'm talking about the Grammys, just in case.
Yes, I did not win the Grammys, and she'll never forgive
Oh yes,
them.
we didn't talk about that, but yeah, Austin again nominated, bravo, for the Grammy, and he didn't get it, but all good. I did my I complained enough, and I didn't complain publicly. I just complained with
you were a very
close
good
people.
partner to be so supportive. You were
It
like,
was fun.
Austin is very sweet and he's applauding his colleagues, which gives me permission to be mad.
I know,
which
can't
is very
help that.
sweet.
Yeah,
No, but
I'll burn the place down.
all applause to Steve Schnurr and Gordy Habb and Stephen Barton for Jedi Survivor. There's no denying that not anybody could write a score like that in terms of threading the needle of the John Williams aesthetic so effectively. It's not easy to do. And just the sheer labor involved in writing and producing 6 or 7 hours worth of big, complex orchestral music and Gordy went to London for like 5 weeks because of how much, like,
so
there's
crazy.
literally 28 days of sessions or something. Totally insane.
Yeah. Anyway, as bar talk, you didn't win. But let's continue with...
As Ravel, you mean?
As Ravel, yes.
Yeah, Ravel, the string quartet. My explanation was that part of the reason, beyond the fact that it's just awesome music. In fact, when we were explaining this exhibition to our friend Bear McCreary during the Grammys, I told him the 5 pieces, and I said the scherzo from the Ravel String Quartet is one of them I chose. And he goes, that's hilarious. That is my single favorite piece of all of classical music. The entire canon,
That's
the
so
entire
great.
body of work, that movement of that piece, he's like, it's so metal. And he's so right. It absolutely is. It is metal before metal. And
Really, yeah.
so that one, I explained to you the context and the Rome Prize and all that. But the thing that I said that I think is cool about it is that Ravel, one of the things that interests me as a composer is when you look back over a composer's life and you find that moment where they seemingly became themselves. Like there's that YouTube channel called Entertain the Elk where he will do a YouTube video analysis where it's like, this is the day The Simpsons was born. And he identifies the exact episode where they kind of hit their stride and they found the magic. You know, here's the day Friends was born. Here's the day The Office was born. They're really great YouTube videos where he really does a good job at saying this is why this is kind of like the first real episode. And it's, with composers, it's the same. Some mature very late, some mature very early. And that Ravel String Quartet is generally considered to be the one where the Ravel that we all talk about when we talk about his music was kind of born, in a sense, compositionally with that piece. And I love what you did with that information in the painting, because you created this work that was a kind of abstraction of this idea of climbing to a higher plane. Right. And I love, because it's one of those where when you explain if I just saw that, and even if I saw it with the knowledge of it being inspired by Ravel, I don't know that even I don't think I would have clocked, it's about his maturing. It's kind of a metaphor for maturing.
Again, it's so abstract, but you told me that. You told me that this was the piece that made him what he was. And I felt like, well, if we're talking about life and achieving goals, then I could make maybe like a climbing little, mountain or structure that you like place a flag and then go to the next goal. And so that's what I did.
But it's very you, because at a glance it's just this wash of color and cloudy texture and very kind of, there's a lot going on. It's not flat, it's very dynamic. And then when you kind of study it, you're like, oh wow, it's actually kind of like people, suggestive of people, silhouettes sort of kind of thing. Going up what almost looks like cable cars or climbing ropes or something. To me, it's one of those that if you had just said, if the assignment was, I'm going to tell you exactly what to paint, I would never have thought to tell you to paint that, which is why it's so cool.
The exercise was not for you to tell me, well, this is the story of a family that lived in a little red house. No.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying I would never have thought of that interpretation. That's why I loved this premise, because I gave you like a buffet of stuff to just make of whatever you want, and then you made something that I would never have thought that buffet could even make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This was the goal of the project. At the end, I learned. I felt like this was an obstacle because I was not expecting to be so abstract with the information. But it helped me kind of like expand a little bit more. Let's get out of the, I guess, norm.
Yeah, or a very like literal way of thinking.
Whatever the heck I feel. Yeah, just let my mind decide for me. Just go with the flow.
Yeah. Well, then seems like it, did its job, because that was. I don't want to say that was the goal in that I had any kind of agenda, but the bigger picture goal is always that we're growing and we're doing something that we haven't done before. Or at least for me, the goal is to move to new places in the work. And if you felt like this put you somewhere new, then mission accomplished.
Oh yeah.
It's worth also.
And I'm so ready to plan the next one.
I
so
love
excited.
that.
This was so good. It felt really nice, and also just seeing all these people that I actually was not expecting to see.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is it's worth calling out that some like a pretty big showing of folks came and it for anybody who's listening to this who is not familiar with Los Angeles. There's two things that you constantly have to deal with when you're in LA. If you're trying to do anything cool, put on an event, like if you're a stand-up comic and want to get people to come see you do your open mic stand-up act, or if you're a filmmaker who has a screening at a festival, like there's always LA. So item one, LA has every night 50,000 interesting things to do. World class, major artists at the Bowl or at Disney Hall or at the Opera or at
everywhere.
The theater.
5 minutes away from you.
Yeah, and then there's world class movie theaters, and there's a million. Like just the other day at the Troubadour, Paul Simon and Paul McCartney apparently came by, and we are very spoiled by an overabundance, like a blinding overabundance of options of what you want to do if you want to go out that night. Never mind all the museums and all the, it just goes on, or just go to the beach, or like there's just so much competition for people's time that the flip side, even though this place is like a mecca where all these creative people from around the world come and try to create their work, the flip as a result is that if you're trying to put on a thing, it is hard to get people to come because it's just competitive. It's just, there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of like things fighting for people's attention. And so, you tend to really notice the people who will show up and come to your thing, like the magnificent Frank John Hughes and Kimberly Wang, who came and then
glad it was like I saw them and I was like, oh my god,
I knew they were coming and I intentionally didn't tell you because
you son of a bitch.
Yeah, no, I wanted to see that look on your face when you realized they were there. But they, when we went to that screening of Melora's, they were there, and they came to the Thai Cave SCL screening that I did. Like there are people that show up. Mason Lieberman and
Oh my
and
god.
like Emmanuel Lagombe.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say his last name? Um,
Lagombe.
Lagombe, yeah, showed up, and Patrick, who I
Oh
didn't expect,
yes.
and so so there were people that it's noteworthy that they come because they had 1,000 things that they could have been doing that night, and they did. But then the
Mm-hmm.
second aspect that's also worth noting to anyone not in LA is that LA is a pretty big place, and people after a while people get sick of spending a lot of time in their cars, so they'll tend to stick
Mm-hmm.
to their neighborhood. So if you live in Santa
Yes.
Monica, you'll tend to go to events in Santa Monica because there's a lot of events and you don't really need to go that far. So that also
Yes.
means that if you're trying to get people to come out and it's not like right in the middle of like Hollywood or Santa Monica or even like North Hollywood is a challenge, then you're up against a big battle, especially if they have to sit in evening traffic. And this thing was in
Mm-hmm.
Anaheim, which is where Disneyland is. That's not
It
considered
was the
LA.
worst combination because it was far away. It was at 6:30.
Yeah, which means evening traffic at
Peak
peak.
traffic.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was me. Like I'm not Paul McCartney. I'm not. So it is hard to convince people, and
And
I
so many
was
came.
blown away.
Yeah.
I was yes.
I was like, we need to make a list of everyone who was here and make sure that not one name is ever forgotten because these people it sounds
Oh
like
yeah.
we're making a big deal out of something that shouldn't be a big deal, but when you live here you really know
Yes.
that it's so easy to just go, I don't have time, sorry. I've been that guy.
Right.
There've been times where I was like, no, I really don't feel like it, and I know they'll understand. And then other times where I was like, you know what? I should have gone. I don't want to be the guy that that doesn't go, And I'm
Right.
always glad I do when I've got friends doing
Yeah.
things. But it's hard to. It's not like you can demand everybody have the same attitude, especially
Of
because there's a
course,
lot of
no, of
reasons why it's
course.
actually not like we have one friend who, had like a doctor's appointment and they're like,
Right.
it's just physically impossible to get from the appointment in time because
Yeah.
there's so much time needed to cross town.
Yeah. All
And
good. All good.
and so
And
yeah, no
work
one would.
also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's truly all fine. But for the amount that came, I was so happy. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that so many people. I mean it. It was really like you moved here, not knowing anyone but me. 6 years ago almost, you moved here just to a new country and to obviously a new way of life, a new everything, and you were kind of joining my life where I had all these friends already. I'd lived in LA for 15 years or however, almost 15 years at that point. Like you were definitely. It's not that we went somewhere new where we could build a life from scratch together. You were joining my life. That's just the accurate description. And I'm grateful you did, but it was a thing that it's challenging at first because you're like, well, what is my identity here? How do I make
Yeah.
my place that's uniquely mine, and I'm not just the plus one.
Right.
And I know that was
Of
always
course.
important to you. And every one of those people there last night, they were there because it was your exhibition. This was not my event. It fundamentally was not my event. And so to me, I just found myself really emotional and happy that so many people were like,
Yeah. For
I'm not
real.
here for you. To me,
Well, Uriel told me he was there for the free food, but that is also acceptable.
this guy came 3 hours by bus from Mexico.
From Tijuana, yes, and
Unbelievable.
After here, it's just he's crazy. This is a friend that I've known for years, yes, but he didn't have to do this. He came after his dialysis.
Yeah, he had a
He has
3 hour
a-
dialysis treatment and then got straight onto the
And
bus
then-
and rode for
and then
another
he
3 hours.
arrived. He arrived and he's like, I'm so sorry if I look weak. I just I just came out
Unbelievable.
of my dialysis. It's
I was
just
like-
so crazy. I have no words for. I was just like, dude, this. I don't even know what to say. It's just like you're crazy and Yeah, I
And
love you.
yeah, for real. No, that guy, I liked him already. He's a really gregarious personality, and he's a lot of fun and very expressive. And he's been dealing with some tough shit in his life, and he's been taking
Yes.
it. He's been taking it in stride, in a way that's genuinely inspiring. But even despite all that, he really went up a bunch of notches for me last night. In fact, I kept using him to shame everybody else because I was like,
You what? You were coming from LA?
yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. It was 45 minutes drive where I could sit in my air conditioned car and listen to whatever music I wanted to. This guy rode the bus over the border. Yeah, mind
Oh my
blowing.
god, you're such a. You don't have to say it. Like I am still grateful for the effort, of course.
Oh no, all of us could benefit from a reality check. And because also again, that's on top of the fact that he's had some real genuine life challenges.
Yes.
And he's like, what are you gonna do? And I go,
Yeah, I know.
it's a good reminder because sometimes, like canvas chews on the wall and makes a mess, and I'll react in a way as if something far worse has happened, and it'll really upset me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then I later I look back on it and I go, that was stupid. I don't know why I was so irritated. I don't like
No,
it's
it just it's normal. It's normal. You have your issues outside of that, and your mind just decides to explode in that moment, just to use that as an excuse. So I get it.
still someone like Uriel is a great reminder that my problems, generally speaking, are not real problems, and that I'm so lucky that these are my problems. And so yeah. Anyway, it was really, really great event, and really, I
Yes.
was so happy that so many people came, and we got to perform Dialogos together,
Yeah.
and that was
You took me on a trip to Mordor and stuff.
yeah, that one was a little bit more on the dark end of the spectrum. There wasn't a lot of sweetness in that particular performance.
Yeah.
Dialogos, in case we've never, I don't remember how much we've talked about it on here before, but that is our improvised duet of sorts, where
Yeah, it's
Angela,
improvised. Like I got a lot of questions. Like, do you think about the painting beforehand? And I keep saying, no, 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 no. This is like his influence with the music is what is happening. Because
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I was just painting the sky first, and it was night because the notes were a little sad or dark, or
exactly.
it didn't feel like a yeah. So that.
But
is
the
just
flip
how
of
I
it
think.
is that I'm watching you paint, and I'm trying to capture what it looks like you're painting with the music, so that we call it dialogue because we're having a conversation. I am not giving a speech, and you are listening, or vice versa. We are actively kind of pushing and pulling each other, and there will be moments where I'll realize I see something in the painting that I didn't see 2 minutes earlier, so I change the music accordingly. And then there will be other moments where I go, oh, what could be cool? I wonder what would happen if I got really quiet and delicate in this moment and see what she does. And so I'll intentionally lead a little, and then I'll follow, and because one thing I was explaining to Frank was that it is there's an interesting asymmetry to our sides of this dialogue, because I can change what I'm doing much faster than you can. Like I can shift gears into a whole new type of music, a whole new everything,
Right.
new. I can go from quiet to loud and delicate and sentimental to aggressive and angry or whatever in a fraction of a second. But you can't just turn a painting. You need at least a minute to really act like heavily.
Right.
So it encourages me to
try-
like soak in the mood
Yes.
and to try to like turn like a boat and less like a motorcycle.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When there's like hard changes, I remember I just grab another brush or another color
Yeah.
and start somewhere else in the canvas. Like just find another blank spot and just start painting on that other side. That happened last night.
Yeah.
don't remember, but it happened, and I was like, this is different. I should just go over here and leave whatever I was doing up here and start something over here. It's so fun, and I actually was very happy with the result. I always feel like
yeah, you frequently hate them.
So because last night was 20 minutes, and for the 20 minutes, I actually feel like this is actually pretty good, and yeah, I liked it.
It was interesting because we were supposed to perform in this lovely little courtyard that had these nice lights overhead. And even though I was worried about how cold my fingers would feel playing outdoors at night, it's not freezing, but it's hard to play when it's chilly. It's like I needed a jacket. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't like snow falling, but it was a little uncomfortable.
We have the same problem because like when I have my hands cold as well, I kind of like I can't have a very good pulse.
Precise movement becomes challenging, and so we were outside, but then next door there was like this ceremony. It was like I don't know what it was.
Drums.
But yeah, there were people like dancing in like a ceremonial kind of thing with loud.
Yeah, just so you guys understand, next door of the gallery was this dance space, I think. It's like
basically just a rentable room. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rentable room, and there was this group with drums, and I imagine it was something about the Chinese New Year's or something like that, a celebration.
Oh,
they were practicing a dance.
Like rehearsing. Drums. Yeah, I bet you're right. I bet you're right. There were a lot of other Year of the Dragon decorations in the building, so you're right. I didn't think about that. Either way, they were like...
we had a change.
Yeah, we dragged the piano inside, which on the one hand was good, although my hands still felt very cold, but it was better. But even despite that, I could still hear the drums, and there were times where I never played as quiet as I wanted to because I wanted to try to cover the sound of the drums. And I found myself a few times getting quiet, but then it's distracting because you're thinking, it's like when someone's phone goes off in a movie and you're sitting there just like, all I can think about right now is this person's phone because I know I'm not supposed to be hearing that phone. And so anytime I would get really delicate, I'd hear the drums, so I'd get loud again, just out of practical necessity, which influenced the painting as a result, because...
It was good, and the gallery was very... Arturo was very grateful for our flexibility, because it was not planned, and we had to move everything, like the paint, the canvas and the piano, all inside, and everybody was like... trying to accommodate themselves because it was not a practical space for a show like this, but we enjoyed it, and it was great regardless of the last minute change. I'm just so happy for everything. Things cannot always be as we want, but
honestly, I don't know that I would change any detail. It was really.
It was really good.
It was really good.
I missed the food. I didn't even know.
Me too.
What was the wine?
Yeah, same. I never even saw. At one point, I was like, I think I see grapes, but I didn't.
I saw grapes, and I don't know if they had cheese as well, and then wine. I smell some wine.
That's funny.
At some point.
Yeah.
From somebody, I can't remember.
We were too busy talking to everybody.
I was like, they're drinking. I smell it, and I should get some, but I couldn't. So much going on.
Yeah.
So many people to talk to, and so much happiness.
We'll put a link so people can see the paintings.
Yes.
If they want to see them, and of course, if someone's feeling very excited, these paintings are for sale.
Yeah, they're on my website right now.
They're very, very good. They're really, really, really good. And she worked really hard. And yeah, I think for a lot of people also, it was a nice reminder that there are other things you can do than just go see a movie or go to a concert. Like I think for a lot of people there, going to a gallery to see new art by a painter, a 21st century peer, that's not a typical night out. And I hope
it's not a typical.
Yeah, I hope they all felt like I should do this more often.
That reminds me, somebody was there. He was leaving the U.S. He was gonna go back to Jordan, I think.
He was moving to the UAE, the Emirates, like Doha or Dubai or something.
Yeah.
He's originally from Lebanon, he said. I asked him if he was Jordanian because the only his last name was Khoury, and I said I met a Khoury once, but in Jordan, and he was like, it's actually a Lebanese name, but there's a lot. There
you go.
We had a
I
little.
Didn't ask that many questions.
Yeah, we had a whole conversation
me,
about the Middle East and
he
the
told me
different
he was leaving,
cultures.
And it was nice because he's like, I've never been. I came because of my friend, and I was not familiar with this, and it's just the perfect way to close this journey in the U.S. and
it's true. It was very touching.
Nice.
He was, it was really lovely. He was literally moving away from the U.S. forever, or presumably forever. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to tell his story for him, but it sounded like it was not the best experience. That he was sort of it was a little bit of a like, I need a new chapter in my life,
right.
And
I support.
And so he, there was a certain amount of like a cloud hanging over these last days before he moves, and he made it clear that this was like such a high. It really to be able to come to this space and to meet you and to see this work, and it was, we did our little show. It was lovely to hear him say all that. It was really, it was very genuine, very like enthusiastic, and struck me as very genuine. And plus, he's also a 3D artist, that does like 3D models for games or for film or that kind of thing, like make 3D. And he showed me his stuff, and I was blown away. It was.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
It was like very, very detailed, photorealistic kind of 3D models of things where I was like, my God, I said, I don't know exactly how that works, but just from witnessing little bits here and there of what you do and on the games I've worked on, of how the art team makes things, like highly detailed 3D objects are extremely time consuming. And they're also very costly for the computer to render. That's why video games, you have to try to simplify your textures as much as possible. And this was like, it was amazing. So I said, I'm happy to have met you, and grateful to be one of your final nights in our city.
Yeah, for real.
Well, there's our little recap. I take responsibility rather, for the fact that our release schedule has not been very consistent lately. I know you were working very hard on the exhibition, but my schedule has been especially challenging.
We moved to this house. It's been crazy. Austin has been getting nominations and a lot of work, and also that's pretty amazing. And we've been distracted with life. We appreciate you guys here.
Yeah, sticking with it.
Yeah, regardless of the flakiness.
Yeah, it's not flaky, but yeah, I can only echo that nonetheless. Though we share when we can. We hope you enjoy. So this is that's all from me though for the time being. I'm just today was a big old reflection on your world conquering and how awesome it was, and I hope people go check out the paintings.
Oh, and the exhibition was called Dualities.
Yeah, and actually, if there's anybody that's hearing this that's anywhere near Anaheim, it's going to be up in that space for a month.
Until the 17th of next month.
Yeah, so more than a month. So we'll leave a link, but people can go and wander in and check it out and buy a painting. Buy all the paintings.
I saw one.
Hey,
it's the
first step of several.
Yes.
One painting is...
Emmanuel, thank you so much for buying my painting. It means a lot. He bought one that was called Find Your Light, and I think that resonated with his situation right now. He's a very good friend, and he's changing... how do you say? Changing...
jobs.
Not changing. I was not going to specify that.
Well, he tweeted it all publicly. No, I mean, it was all very public.
I wanted to say more abstract.
Some life disruptions were forced on him, and he
I want
had
to
roll
believe
with
that
it.
my painting was something that kind of like made some connection with life right now. So anyway,
Clearly,
if not,
yes, because he
then-
wouldn't buy it just to be nice. You know, like you know, it's
you never know.
well, unless you're just deeply wealthy, you know, it's a real purchase. You know, so.
It is.
But yeah, I hope folks can go check it out and consider wherever you live. Go look up a gallery and go see what's there. You know, it's a whole dimension of life. There's a lot of artists in this world that are trying to connect with people one way or another through their work, and you know, there's 1,000 ways to get your attention. Social media and movies and all this. That the quietness of making a painting or a sculpture and putting it in a gallery, it's not very flashy compared to like an influencer on TikTok, but there's people that that do it very seriously, and means a lot to them. And if anyone has a chance to go check it out, I certainly am always glad I went. Even if I don't like a single work, I'm always glad I go, you know, because it's nice to see what people are making and how they react to the world, how they channel the things that are going on into whatever their medium is. It's just, that's interesting.
For sure. By the way, there's no album of the day today, but there is a playlist of the day, and that is Dualities. And I'm going to put the link on the description with the pieces that Austin chose for the exhibition.
And the specific recordings that I like. Above all, the Fritz Reiner recording of the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra is one of my single favorite albums I ever bought. So that was, the others are good recordings that I think are very, you know, like very, very good. But that's one that's like, that's a Desert Island CD for me. Anyway, all right. Excellent. Catch y'all next time.
Yes. Thank you for listening, guys. See you around.